Have you ever noticed how some mornings, your legs just don't seem to carry you like they used to? Or how a simple climb up the stairs leaves you breathless and aching, making you wonder if it's just getting old? Many of us quietly accept these changes as part of aging, feeling a little more tired, a bit more forgetful, or maybe even a little unsteady on our feet. But what if I told you that it's not just about getting older? What if the real reasons behind these struggles are different and more manageable than we think? It's easy to overlook these signs, dismissing them as minor annoyances, but in truth, they often hint at something important we need to pay attention to. In this video, we'll explore what's really going on beneath the surface of these everyday challenges and why so many older adults face them silently. By the end, I'll share simple, science-backed habits that can help you regain strength, boost your energy, and feel more confident moving through your days. So, stay with me. You might just discover that aging doesn't have to mean slowing down or losing the joy of living. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. There are moments in life when the world outside your window looks perfectly ordinary. The birds are singing, the neighbors walk their dogs, and the afternoon sun spills across the living room carpet just like it did yesterday. Yet inside your own home, there's a quiet heaviness, a loneliness that doesn't quite make sense. Maybe you sit together at the breakfast table, sharing coffee with the same person you've known for years, yet the silence between you feels louder than ever. You wonder if this is just how things go as we age, that maybe love just becomes less important, or that a sense of emptiness is inevitable. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many older adults find themselves drifting through days colored by sadness, uncertainty, or even fear. Feelings that are often dismissed or buried under routines and shoulds. It's easy to convince ourselves that, after so many years, relationships are supposed to feel comfortable but distant, reliable but dull, or that the little jabs and dismissive words are just part of sharing a life for decades. Sometimes, we even tell ourselves it's too late to expect more, or that we should simply be grateful for companionship in any form. But is that truly all there is? Is the ache you feel just old age, or could it be something more? What if the emotional storms you weather behind closed doors aren't a normal part of growing older, but rather signs of a toxic love, one that quietly erodes your confidence, your joy, and your sense of self-worth? What if the very relationship that should have brought you comfort has become the source of your deepest pain? Let's pause here and ask the question that so few dare to say out loud. Is it possible that love, in its most harmful form, can follow us into our golden years, and that it's never too late to recognize it or break free? It's a difficult question because toxic love isn't always dramatic. It rarely looks like what you see in the movies. Instead, it seeps in gradually, weaving itself into daily routines until the unhealthy patterns seem almost invisible. It might show up as a partner who controls every decision, criticizes your opinions, or makes you feel small for expressing yourself. It could be someone who keeps score of every mistake, or who uses silence as a weapon, leaving you isolated even as you share the same roof. One of the cruelest tricks of toxic love is the way it makes you question your worth. You might notice your laughter has grown quieter, that you hesitate before sharing your thoughts, or that you no longer recognize the person you've become. For older adults, this pain can feel especially sharp, because so much of your life, your family, your history, your memories, are tied to the relationship. The fear of being alone, of starting over, or of being judged by others can keep you trapped in silence, convinced that enduring is easier than speaking out. But let's set aside the idea that enduring is the only option. Let's look at what science and psychology tell us about love that turns toxic, and why it's important, at any age, to recognize it and take care of ourselves. In simple terms, toxic love is a relationship dynamic that causes more harm than good. Psychologists describe it as a connection marked by manipulation, control, or emotional abuse. Patterns that wear down your sense of security, happiness, and autonomy over time. This might involve a partner who constantly puts you down, mocks your interests, or insists that their way is the only way. It can include subtle tactics, like making you feel guilty for spending time with friends, dismissing your health concerns, or insisting you're too sensitive when their words sting. Sometimes it's about power, a need to dominate or dictate, even in small daily decisions. What's especially important for older adults is that these signs often masquerade as normal problems. After retirement, when routines change and families grow distant, it's easy to mistake controlling behavior for caring, "I just want to keep you safe," or emotional withdrawal as normal aging. But science is clear. Relationships deeply affect our well-being, no matter our age. Studies from the National Institute on Aging and leading universities have shown that emotional abuse and unhealthy relationship patterns can increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and even chronic illness in seniors. When love turns sour, your stress hormones stay elevated, sleep is disrupted, and your immune system weakens. Social withdrawal becomes more common, increasing the risk of memory decline and loneliness. In some cases, the fear of confrontation or abandonment keeps older adults from seeking help, especially if they feel there's no point in changing at this stage of life. But recognizing toxic love isn't about blaming yourself or your partner. It's about understanding your right to peace, respect, and dignity. Start by listening to your feelings, not just your thoughts. Do you feel lonely even with someone beside you? Do you walk on eggshells, afraid to voice your needs? Have you noticed your confidence shrinking over time, or do you worry constantly about being good enough for your partner? You're not alone. Across America, countless seniors have quietly endured years of these subtle wounds, believing their pain is just a normal part of growing old. But it doesn't have to be. So what can you do? Sometimes, the first step is simply acknowledging your feelings, permitting yourself to recognize that things aren't as they should be. Talk with a trusted friend, a counselor, or a family member. The very act of naming what's happening can bring relief and clarity. If you're comfortable, write down your experience, and notice if certain patterns emerge. Ask yourself, do I feel valued? Do I have space to be myself? Are my needs and boundaries respected? Taking gentle action doesn't always mean leaving a relationship. Sometimes it means starting an honest conversation or setting small boundaries, like asking for time alone when you feel overwhelmed. Try reconnecting with old friends, joining a senior center activity, or finding an online group for older adults going through similar experiences. Practicing self-care, whether it's a walk in the park, a favorite hobby, or simply enjoying a peaceful cup of tea, can remind you of your worth outside the relationship. Let me share a story that might sound familiar. There's a woman named Mary, a retired teacher from Ohio, who spent nearly 40 years in a marriage that looked perfect on the outside. Her husband, once loving and attentive, became distant over the years, critical of her friends, dismissive of her hobbies, quick to anger if dinner was late. Mary grew quieter, choosing not to share her opinions to keep the peace. She told herself that all marriages get boring, and that her feelings were just part of getting older. One day, her granddaughter noticed she never smiled at family gatherings anymore. That small observation shook Mary awake. She began meeting with a local support group at the community center, where she listened to other seniors share their stories of silent suffering and quiet bravery. For the first time, Mary realized her pain wasn't just old age, but the slow poison of toxic love. With encouragement, she began reclaiming her space, setting gentle boundaries, and pursuing activities that brought her joy. Slowly, she rediscovered her voice and her confidence. Maybe your story isn't exactly like Mary's. Maybe your struggles are quieter or your worries different. But know this, recognizing toxic love is not a sign of weakness, but of strength and self-respect. It's never too late to honor your own needs, to choose kindness for yourself, and to believe that your happiness matters. So if you find yourself feeling alone, misunderstood, or afraid in your relationship, remember, you deserve more than just endurance. Life after 65 is meant for growth, laughter, and moments of real connection. Trust in your right to feel safe and valued, and take the first gentle step toward the love and peace you truly deserve. It's easy to believe that, after a lifetime of weathering storms, we should be able to handle just about anything that comes our way. We tell ourselves that hurtful words will bounce off, that the sting of being ignored or belittled fades with time, and that the aches of the heart can be soothed by a brisk walk or a favorite old movie. But the truth is, as the years pass, the weight of toxic love, love that erodes rather than nurtures, can press down harder than we ever expect, leaving deep marks on both mind and body. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. You might notice it first in the restless nights, the tossing and turning as your mind replays old arguments or dwells on the next day's tension. The bedroom, once a place of comfort and quiet, now feels tense and chilly, even with a thick quilt drawn up to your chin. As time goes by, mornings grow heavy, and the joy that used to greet you with the sunrise is replaced by a dull sense of dread. For some, this shadow never lifts, clinging quietly in the background of daily life. What many don't realize is that toxic love, marked by constant criticism, manipulation, or emotional neglect, doesn't simply hurt your feelings. It slowly, and sometimes invisibly, chips away at your health in ways that science is only now beginning to fully understand. According to a 2018 study from the National Institute on Aging, seniors who experience ongoing emotional abuse or toxic relationship patterns are at far greater risk for depression and anxiety. Chronic emotional stress triggers a cascade of physical effects in the body. Your stress hormones stay elevated, blood pressure creeps upward, and the body's natural rhythms, like sleep and appetite, become unsettled. A 2021 report from Harvard Medical School found that older adults exposed to high levels of emotional conflict within the home had significantly higher rates of hypertension, insomnia, and even weakened immune response. Why does this happen? Our bodies are wired to react to stress, and for most of our lives, this reaction helps us survive tough situations. But when the source of stress isn't an external threat, like a car rushing by or a slippery sidewalk, but rather a relationship, the body has nowhere to run. Instead, you live in a constant state of subtle alarm. The heart races at every harsh word, the muscles tense at each heavy silence, and sleep is fractured by worry. Over months or years, this takes a toll. The immune system falters, leaving you more vulnerable to illnesses. Your risk for heart disease, diabetes, and stroke rises, and memory, focus, and mood all begin to fray. Even more quietly, toxic love often isolates seniors from the world beyond their front door. You may begin to withdraw from old friends, too embarrassed or exhausted to join lunch at the senior center or make a phone call just to chat. Social gatherings feel like a chore, not a joy, and bit by bit, the circle of support that once made life rich and resilient becomes smaller and smaller. According to research from the American Psychological Association, seniors who experience prolonged social isolation, especially when driven by an unhealthy relationship, are at significantly higher risk of cognitive decline, including memory loss and even early-onset dementia. It's not just science. It's something many have witnessed, sometimes in the quiet heartbreaks of people we know and love. Consider the story of Mr. James Carter, a retired firefighter from Kansas City. For most of his life, James was the heart of his family. The one who carved the Thanksgiving turkey, fixed squeaky porch steps, and volunteered at the local food bank long after he'd hung up his uniform. But after his wife's passing, James remarried a woman he met through church, a decision his children initially celebrated, hoping it would bring him joy. At first, things seemed fine. But over time, James's friends noticed he was less likely to join the weekly card games or attend Sunday brunch. When they called, his new wife often answered, saying he was napping or busy. Slowly, James grew quieter, rarely making eye contact, and when he did show up at gatherings, he seemed on edge, quick to apologize for the smallest things. His son, Mark, described a growing sense of worry. Dad just wasn't himself. He looked tired all the time and kept losing his temper over little things, which was never like him. Behind closed doors, James was living with constant criticism and emotional control. His wife would scold him for forgetting small chores, mock his old habits, and insist he avoid his children, claiming they didn't care about him. The house became a battleground of silence and scorn. James stopped inviting friends over, then stopped answering the phone altogether. His blood pressure soared, his arthritis worsened, and his once restful sleep turned into long nights of staring at the ceiling. Eventually, a fall sent James to the hospital. The doctors noted not just his physical injuries, but also his high blood pressure and signs of depression. During his stay, a kind nurse asked James if he felt safe and supported at home. The question cracked something open inside him. With her encouragement, he began meeting with a counselor at the hospital. He talked, for the first time, about the fear and sadness that had crept into every corner of his life. Recovery wasn't instant, but James's journey back to health began with that moment of honesty. With the support of his children, a local senior advocacy group, and new friendships he made in group therapy, James started to rebuild his sense of self. Gradually, his sleep improved. He rejoined his card group, learned gentle exercises to lower his blood pressure, and, most importantly, found hope again. James's story is not unique. Across the country, older adults like him endure the invisible wounds of toxic love, often believing that their pain is just part of getting older or something to keep private. But the science is clear. The impact is real, and it is profound. Chronic stress and emotional pain have the power to reshape the body and the mind, increasing the risk of nearly every disease seniors fear, from heart trouble to memory loss. Yet, just as pain leaves its mark, so too does hope. Research shows that with recognition and support, seniors can heal both mentally and physically. Connecting with others, whether through family, friends, or community resources, can lower stress, improve mood, and protect the brain. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness but of wisdom and courage. If you find yourself relating to James, know that you are not alone. The effects of toxic love are heavy, but they are not inevitable. Each day offers the chance to reach out, to speak honestly about your experience, and to take small steps toward a healthier, happier you. Maybe that step is confiding in a friend, calling a helpline, or talking with your doctor about how you truly feel. Remember, your well-being matters, and it is never too late to reclaim your peace, your health, and your joy. In the end, the strongest hearts are not those that never break, but those that heal, hope, and love again, with wisdom, self-respect, and courage. Your story is still being written, and the next chapter can be brighter than you ever imagined. Margaret never imagined she would feel truly alone in her own home. At 72, she had lived through wars and economic downturns, raised 3 children, and retired after 30 years as a nurse. Yet nothing had prepared her for the quiet ache that settled over her days once her second husband, Frank, retired and their grown children moved across the country. She always believed marriage meant sticking together through thick and thin. But slowly, the life she shared with Frank became a daily routine of criticism, tension, and silences that seemed to stretch on forever. Frank was never violent. He was a man who valued hard work and discipline, but after retirement, his patience wore thin. He scoffed at Margaret's book club meetings, calling them a waste of time. When Margaret wanted to video call their grandchildren, Frank would grumble about the noise or complain that she was spoiling the kids. The smallest missteps, burnt toast, a forgotten errand, became reasons for harsh words or, worse, icy silence. Margaret found herself shrinking, apologizing for everything, even things that weren't her fault. The home that should have been her sanctuary felt more like a place of quiet suffering. At first, Margaret excused Frank's moods. He was just adjusting to retirement, she told herself. All couples bicker, she reasoned. Her friends would sometimes mention their marital frustrations, laughing it off as the old ball and chain. Even her children seemed to believe that these were just the usual bumps that came with aging. But for Margaret, each day felt heavier, lonelier. Sometimes she would stand by the kitchen window, mug of tea in hand, and feel the sting of tears she couldn't explain. She missed the days when she felt loved and valued, and she feared that this emptiness was simply what old age meant for her. Still, she kept her pain to herself. She didn't want to burden her children, who lived busy lives on the other side of the country. She felt embarrassed to admit the truth to friends who always saw her as the strong one. What would they think if they knew that she'd failed, somehow, at the very thing she'd spent her life nurturing? Her marriage? The fear of judgment was almost as heavy as the loneliness itself. One chilly autumn morning, after a particularly tense dinner the night before, Margaret wandered into her local library. She'd always loved books, and the library had been her quiet refuge for years. That morning, she noticed a flyer on the community board, "Senior Wellness Group, share your story, find your strength." The words tugged at her heart, though she almost didn't dare to hope that talking to strangers could help. But something inside her, a voice she hadn't heard in a long time, whispered, "Why not? What have you got to lose?" At the first meeting, Margaret listened as other seniors spoke of loss, grief, and even difficult marriages. There were tears and laughter, stories of heartbreak and hope. For the first time in years, Margaret heard someone describe a marriage that sounded like hers. "Sometimes I feel invisible in my own home," one woman confessed, and Margaret's eyes filled with tears. She realized in that moment that her loneliness wasn't just about growing older. It was about living without warmth, respect, or kindness. That realization shook Margaret awake. She went home and, instead of drifting through the day in silence, she sat with a notebook and wrote down her feelings. For the first time, she named what she was experiencing: sadness, anger, fear, and longing for connection. She remembered the vibrant woman she used to be, the nurse who comforted patients, the mother who taught her children to stand up for themselves, the friend who always made others laugh. She knew something had to change. The journey was slow and, at times, frightening. Margaret started by reaching out to her daughter, Anna, who listened quietly on the other end of the line. Anna didn't judge or offer quick fixes. She simply listened and reminded her mother that she was loved. That small act of support was enough to give Margaret courage to take the next step. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. With the encouragement of her wellness group, Margaret started joining community activities, painting classes, gentle yoga, and volunteering at the animal shelter. At first, Frank mocked her new schedule, but Margaret didn't back down. She found joy in small things: the smell of fresh paint, the laughter of new friends, the warmth of a kitten curled in her lap. Each activity was a thread that wove her back into the fabric of life, slowly mending the holes that loneliness had left. Margaret also learned to practice self-care in ways she'd long neglected. She began each day with a walk in the park, noticing the way sunlight danced through autumn leaves. She read novels that inspired her and kept a gratitude journal by her bed. In therapy, she learned to set gentle boundaries with Frank. When he was unkind, she no longer absorbed the blame. She calmly told him how his words made her feel. It was never easy. Sometimes, it left her trembling inside, but each honest conversation was a victory. The changes in Margaret didn't go unnoticed. Her friends remarked on the new light in her eyes. Her children visited more often, drawn by her renewed spirit. Even Frank, faced with a woman who would no longer accept silent suffering, grew quieter, less quick to criticize. While their marriage didn't become perfect, Margaret no longer felt powerless or invisible. With time, Margaret found herself smiling more, singing along with the radio, and reaching out to old friends. She learned that freedom didn't necessarily mean leaving, but reclaiming her sense of self and refusing to let someone else's bitterness define her world. The peace she found wasn't the absence of pain, but the presence of hope and self-worth. Margaret's journey wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't fast. There were setbacks, and there were days when she still felt lonely or afraid. But she discovered, step by step, that even in her 70s, her story could change, that the habits of a lifetime could be unlearned, and that new beginnings were possible at any age. Through the simple acts of reaching out, connecting, and caring for herself, Margaret broke the invisible chains that had kept her small. Now, when she stands by the kitchen window, Margaret still sees the same world outside, but she feels part of it again. The silence in her home is no longer a prison, but a space for reflection, peace, and sometimes even joy. She knows her worth, and she lives with a quiet confidence that inspires others. If Margaret's story sounds familiar, know that you, too, are not alone. The road to freedom from toxic love may be difficult, but it is paved with hope, courage, and the unwavering belief that your happiness is worth fighting for at any stage of life. For many older adults, the idea of starting over, of making any kind of big change in your relationships, can feel overwhelming, maybe even impossible. You've lived a lifetime of habits, routines, and compromises. You may wonder if it's too late to find happiness, or if speaking up would only make things worse. But the truth is, no matter your age, you deserve peace, kindness, and the freedom to live on your terms. If you recognize echoes of your own life in these stories, know that small, steady steps can lead you toward freedom and healing, even if you don't quite believe it yet. The very first step is to listen honestly to your feelings. This might sound simple, but it's something many of us forget how to do, especially after years of putting others first. For so long, you may have brushed aside your discomfort, telling yourself, it's not so bad, or everyone has their faults. But take a quiet moment, maybe with your morning coffee or an afternoon walk, and gently ask yourself, am I happy? Do I feel safe and respected in my home? Sometimes the deepest truths come not from words, but from the small aches in your heart, or the way your shoulders tense up when you anticipate criticism. Permit yourself to name your feelings, without judgment. They are real. They matter. Next, don't hesitate to talk with trusted family or professionals. You may fear that no one will understand, or that sharing your worries will burden those you love. Yet often, those closest to you want nothing more than to help. You just have to let them in. Try opening up to an adult child, a favorite niece or nephew, or a longtime friend. You don't need to have all the answers. Sometimes, simply saying, I've been struggling, is enough to break the spell of isolation. If family feels too close or too complicated, consider reaching out to a senior counselor, social worker, or even a spiritual leader. Some caring professionals understand the unique challenges older adults face. Many communities have senior hotlines or counseling centers, sometimes just a phone call away. Set clear boundaries in relationships. This can be the hardest step of all, especially if you've spent years being the peacemaker or giving up your own needs for the sake of harmony. But healthy love is built on mutual respect. That means you have the right to ask for space, to say no to things that hurt you, and to express your feelings honestly. Boundaries don't have to be harsh or angry. They can be as simple as saying, when you speak to me that way, I feel hurt. Please stop, or I need an hour alone each day to recharge. If your partner or loved one resists, remember, their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your well-being comes first. Practice setting small boundaries and see how it feels. With time, you'll discover that standing up for yourself is not selfish, but necessary. Just as important, focus on nurturing positive relationships around you. Toxic love can make your world feel very small, convincing you that you don't deserve friendship, laughter, or connection. Push back against this lie by reaching out to people who make you feel good about yourself. Maybe it's joining a book club at the library, signing up for a gardening class, or volunteering at your church or senior center. Old friends might be waiting for a phone call. New friends might be found at the park, the pool, or even through a local support group for seniors. Building new connections won't happen overnight, but every smile and every shared story is a brick in the foundation of your new life. Alongside these social steps, prioritize your mental and physical health. The wounds of toxic love often show up in your body, making you tired, anxious, or withdrawn. Give yourself the same gentle care you'd offer a grandchild or an old friend. Eat nourishing meals, get outside for fresh air, and make time for things that bring you joy, whether it's painting, baking, or listening to your favorite music. If sleep is a struggle, try a simple evening routine of quiet reading or deep breathing. And don't hesitate to see your doctor if you notice new aches or moods. Your health matters. Your mind and body are partners in healing, and even small changes can make a big difference. If you need support, there are many senior-focused organizations and communities in the U.S. ready to help. The AARP, American Association of Retired Persons, offers resources for relationship health, caregiver support, and community engagement. Senior centers across the country provide everything from counseling to group activities. The National Council on Aging has programs for mental wellness and elder rights. Many states have area agencies on aging that connect seniors with local support. And for those facing emotional abuse, organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233 offer confidential advice, no matter your age or background. Don't let pride or fear keep you from reaching out. These resources exist because you matter. Finally, never hesitate to seek professional counseling if needed. Therapy is not just for the young or people with big problems. It's a tool for anyone who wants to feel better, heal old wounds, or simply understand themselves more deeply. Some therapists specialize in working with seniors, understanding the unique losses and transitions that come with aging. If in-person therapy feels daunting, many offer sessions by phone or video call, making support more accessible than ever. Sometimes, talking things out with someone who listens, without judgment or expectation, can open doors you never imagined. Let's pause and remember the story of John, an 80-year-old grandfather from Ohio. For years, John felt unappreciated and controlled by his longtime partner. He rarely spoke up, afraid to rock the boat. But after a health scare sent him to the hospital, a caring nurse suggested he try group counseling at the local senior center. Nervous but desperate, John gave it a shot. Over the months, he built friendships with others who understood his struggles. With encouragement from the group, he practiced saying no at home, started going out with friends again, and, most importantly, began to believe that his feelings were worth honoring. John's story reminds us that courage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet choice to start again. If you're watching this now and see your own story in these words, know this: it's never too late to choose yourself. The past is written, but the next chapter is yours to shape. Each small step, whether it's a conversation, a boundary, a walk in the sunshine, or a phone call for help, can lead you toward peace and self-worth. Healing doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means believing you deserve more than what's hurt you. Give yourself the gift of hope, and know that a kinder, brighter life is not just possible, but waiting for you. Your heart is still strong, your story still matters, and every day is a new chance to reclaim your joy. Have you ever sat by your window on a quiet afternoon, looking out at the world and wondering if you've simply grown too old to expect more from life? Maybe you've watched couples stroll hand in hand, heard the laughter of friends over the fence, or remembered moments when you felt truly loved and valued. It's not unusual at a certain age to start believing that the best days of happiness, of excitement and belonging, are tucked away in the past. Many people over 65 quietly accept loneliness or settle for relationships that leave them feeling unappreciated, thinking, maybe this is just the way it is now. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But pause with me for a moment. What if that feeling of emptiness or quiet longing isn't something you simply have to accept? What if it's not a sign that your time for change is over, but a gentle reminder that you deserve more? You might have spent years caring for others, working hard, and pushing your own needs aside. Yet, does loving someone else mean you should stop loving yourself? Is it possible that peace, respect, and fulfillment are things you can still claim for your own heart, no matter your age? Here's something science tells us, and it's worth believing. The human brain and heart remain open to change and joy for as long as we live. Neurologists now know that our minds can adapt and heal even in our later years, forming new connections, learning new ways to think, and recovering from past hurts. Psychologists have found that older adults who seek out even small, positive changes, like reaching out to an old friend, joining a group, or simply treating themselves with more kindness, often feel a renewed sense of energy and hope. Love, at its best, is not just something we give, but something we nurture within ourselves. If you've ever doubted your strength, remember this. You have survived storms, loss, and change that would have broken a lesser spirit. Think of the challenges you've faced, raising children, building a life from scratch, and making it through uncertain times. Every wrinkle and gray hair is a badge of resilience. Just because you've carried heavy burdens doesn't mean you can't put them down. The peace and fulfillment you seek may be waiting just around the corner, and the first step begins with believing you deserve it. So, what can you do today to start? You don't have to make grand gestures or transform your life overnight. Begin with a simple act of self-care. Brew a cup of your favorite tea, take a walk in the fresh air, call someone who always makes you smile, or open a book that lifts your spirits. Write yourself a note. I am worthy of happiness. I deserve love that feels safe and kind. Small as these actions may seem, each one is a promise to your heart that it's never too late to choose yourself. Let me share a real story, a story of hope. There's a man named Bill, from Indiana, who spent much of his retirement in a house filled with tension. After decades of giving in to the moods and criticisms of his partner, Bill began to feel invisible, as though he had nothing left to offer. One evening, after a particularly harsh argument, he sat in his living room and stared at a photograph from his younger days. In it, he was smiling widely, arms slung around his fishing buddies, carefree and at ease. Where did that man go? He wondered. It wasn't a lightning bolt moment, but over time, Bill started making tiny changes. He called his daughter and told her the truth about how he'd been feeling. He joined a men's breakfast group at his church, where he laughed and listened to others who had their own stories of regret and renewal. He began to spend more time outside, walking the trails at the local park, watching the sunrise, letting nature remind him of life's simple joys. With each step, Bill felt a bit lighter. He began to set small boundaries at home, insisting on respect, refusing to be drawn into arguments, and finding peaceful places in his day just for himself. Slowly, he rediscovered the man in that old photograph. Bill's story isn't about leaving his relationship or running away from his problems. It's about reclaiming his worth and finding that, even at 78, it was not too late to change his life for the better. If you see yourself in Bill's story, or if you carry your secret ache, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not too old for new beginnings. You are not too late for love that is gentle, patient, and true, most of all, love for yourself. The world may have changed, your body may feel different, but your heart's longing for connection and kindness remains as vibrant as ever. Start today, just with one small step. Write a letter to yourself, call a friend, join a local group, or try something you've always wanted to do but put off for years. Tell yourself, as many times as you need, that your happiness is worth fighting for, not for anyone else's approval, but for your peace and fulfillment. The first step is always the hardest, but every journey toward a better life begins with a single act of courage. Let this be your gentle reminder, your nudge to action. You deserve healthy, peaceful, and fulfilling love. It doesn't matter how many years have passed or what you've been through. The next chapter of your story can be brighter, lighter, and filled with more joy than you ever imagined possible. You are stronger than you think. You have more to give and more to receive than you realize. Begin today for yourself. Because, above all else, you are worthy of happiness, and it's never too late to choose a life filled with hope and love. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want you to remember one simple truth. Your life, your happiness, and your well-being matter deeply. You have faced countless challenges, joys, and changes throughout your years, and yet your story is still unfolding. No matter where you are right now, whether you feel stuck, lonely, or ready for something new, you have the power to take steps toward a brighter, more peaceful future. Breaking free from toxic love is never easy. It takes courage to look honestly at your feelings, to ask for support, and to set boundaries that protect your heart. But it is also one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. You deserve relationships that uplift you, respect you, and fill your days with kindness and joy. If you've learned something meaningful today, I invite you to share it in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if this video touched your heart, please consider liking and sharing it with others who may benefit. Together, we can create a community where every older adult feels valued, understood, and empowered to live fully. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories, advice, and encouragement designed especially for you. Remember, it's never too late to choose yourself, to reclaim your happiness, and to welcome the love and peace you truly deserve. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take gentle care of yourself, and take that first step toward the life you want, because you are worth it.